Okay. Hello, my name is Hannah Robinson.
I'm Samantha Davidson, and I think Katie's frozen.
Okay, spelling. Yeah, we can't have much of a debate if it's just you and me.
Okay. Um, well, Katie was gonna go first, but did you want to go ahead and go first, Hannah?
With my opening statement.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So as a religionist point of view, it is my stance that um, religion deserves a free and equal opportunity as those who are secular or those who are humanist to influence public policy and to have a voice in government. And within the last 2 years, there has been an oppressive environment for religious freedom, especially concerning freedom of speech in the public arena. And my stance is that we do not deserve more rights than a secular person, but we deserve equal rights. And at the moment, that is being oppressed.
Did you want to go ahead and also talk about some key points, strong points in the talk?
Some key points that he brought up. Okay. So just to keep a few key points in the article that I'm representing by Elder Oaks is he says that um, he advocates for love, so speaking with love towards others. He also advocates for um, non-silence, so speaking out with what we believe in and having the right of freedom of speech. Um, he also talks about um, being able to share our faith with others without restraint and not feeling intimidated just because we're religious and somehow that makes our argument less. It actually um, does not invalidate our argument. And um, and also just to advocate for truth in any way, shape, or form. Just being able to advocate for
Wonderful, thank you. Good to have you with us, Katie. Thanks for coming back.
Sorry, I don't. My internet was being weird for a second.
No
Anyways,
stress.
so
Did you want to go ahead and give your opening statement? Hannah, just get first.
yeah. Um, let's see. Hold on a second. Um, all right. So humanism is about uniting human mankind through common principles, and all all the religions of the world fight and bicker about different doctrines without any evidence. And so humanism seems to be like the way maybe we should go because it would unite us on our our common principles. And it seems like trust and revelation from an unseen being does a disservice to humanity. Um, in the article, it says that faith and prayer, hearing God, assume to live and care for persons, to hear and understand their prayers, and to be able to do something about them is unproved and outmoded faith. Religions need to learn to conform to the realities of our modern day and our current situation. And as humans, we kind of need to just help ourselves. And science and technology can provide truth and empower individuals. And we can follow a set of common principles that can help unite the world. So, um, I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Just kidding.
So what would you say are some of the strongest points of the Humanist Manifesto?
I would probably say that it's important to realize that we need to be more modern in our thinking and not go back on traditional views like in religion, and that science and technology have like come a long way and they can help us answer and discover a lot of new things, and religion really is kind of an old thing to look back on. It needs to be more modern, kind of. Does that make sense?
Yep. Was there anything else you wanted to add, or did you want to move on?
um, no, that's kind of it for now, I guess. So,
Well, I'll go. Oh, sorry. Okay. I'll go ahead and go. As years ago, we were talking about Elder Oaks' article, and the biggest thing that stood out to me is kind of what Connor was saying, is that how actions based on religious beliefs, well, actually, there was a saying that he said was treating actions based on religious belief the same as actions based on other systems of belief should not be enough to satisfy the spatial place of religion in the United States Constitution. So what he was talking about was really the importance of this religious freedom has started since the base of our country. And it started with the founding fathers who lived in a society previously where they didn't have those freedoms, and they saw the consequences when those basic rights were denied. There was limitations placed on the individual, and so to break away from those limitations, they sailed across the ocean without, on these rickety wooden ships, and they created a new home in a wild country and risked life and limb in order to preserve this right of religious freedom. And they didn't do this for any other system of belief, but they did this so that we could have um, that religious freedom. And I think that he hit the nail right on the head when he said that one of the consequences of shifting from moral absolutes to moral relativism, public policy, is that this produces a corresponding shift of emphasis from responsibilities to rights. And so one of the biggest modern shift that we see going on right now is that there's almost this sense of entitlement in the society where people are so focused on the rights that they forget about their responsibilities. And there's a lot more freeloading that's going on in America, and there's a lot more killing that's going on in America, and unethical practices that are done to get through the loopholes and everything like that. And that comes from this change of responsibilities and rights. Some of the key strengths that I saw is that the emphasis that was placed was on the Constitution statement that religious freedom is to believe and to practice, and it was placed in the first part of the Bill of Rights. He also used countries such as Mongolia, that suffered from this right of religious freedom, and as they learned from that, they have since then really lost that moral standing that they had. That moral standing that their society had really fell apart, and their society started crumbling. So they've started to try to implement that religion back into their country in order to live. And then another theme that I wanted to point out is that atheism is 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 growing, and a lot of people think that atheism is against religion. But interestingly enough, it is the fourth biggest religion in the world. Religion isn't defined as a belief in God, but it is defined as a set of beliefs concerning the cause of nature or concerning cause, nature, and the purpose of the universe. And so it really is impossible to, I don't know, I think it's an impossible statement to say that there are absolutely no like fundamental truths. There are absolutely no absolute truths, because when you say that, that in and of itself is an absolute truth that you believe in, that there aren't any and that will never change. And so I guess that's my stance with that. I also was looking into um, um, kind of a little bit more of what was going into that. And is that okay if we go ahead and start with the questions, because that leads into my first question?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So when I was reading the Human Manifesto, it says that the dualism of mind and body must be rejected, um, and that science affirms that human species is an emergence from natural evolutionary forces. As far as we know, the total personality is a function of a biological organism. There's no credible evidence that life survives the death of the body, and this is a conclusion that is based on the absence of evidence, and that makes it an argument from silence fallacy. The same argument was once used on swans. No one had ever seen a black swan before, so swans were assumed to be white only, until one day that they actually saw a black swan. Suddenly their firm belief that swans were only white changed. When science is ever evolving, as you mentioned, it has been continuously changing, and that trusting an unseen thing is a disservice to humanity. Like there's always this changing. So when you say, or when the humanist view is brought up, that there is no absolute value just because we haven't found one yet, or just because we don't have the evidence, doesn't disprove that there is somehow. I mean, so I guess like how, um, what are some other ways other than disproving the evidence that we lack that we can be a little bit more solid with
Well, just to go off of what I think what you just said about, uh, I lost my train of thought. I had a lot of thoughts going on while you were talking, but I think one way to help us find other ways is to base on what science has already showed us and what technology has already showed us what it can do, and that way, um, looking at those things from the past, it'll help us to understand maybe future things that could happen. And you mentioned you were talking about morals and stuff, and um, and I think that you have to be that morals and ethics comes from on human base. It's based on what human interests and needs are, and so it's not necessarily based on religion. It's just what people feel are needed or right, and so I think you kind of need to be careful about how you define morals. um, but and then earlier you mentioned how the Constitution mentions religious freedom, and that it was written by the Founding Fathers. But the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they never mention like God or a creator, and there's no reference to that. But there was a treaty that was written 10 years after the Constitution. It's called the Treaty of Tripoli, so it was written by a lot of the same founding fathers, and it says, as the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on Christian religion. So I feel like that kind of just, you just need to be careful about mentioning God and religion because it wasn't based on or founded upon Christian religion. So, but I guess a question I have for either of you is, do you think religion makes you more closed-minded? Because sometimes religion makes you believe certain things, then you aren't as like open-minded to what other people believe and their differences and stuff. So, I don't know.
Hannah, did you want to answer that one, or did you want me to answer?
I think you bring up a really good point. And you know what? To be honest, in a certain sense, religion does make you a little bit closed-minded. I know that for me, like for instance, my personal beliefs are not to drink alcohol because of my religion. And because I believe in not drinking alcohol, you won't see me at the bars. Like I'm closed-minded a little bit to bars, you know, because that's just not a place that I really want to be. But in the same way, I feel like you might not feel comfortable in a church, or you might not feel comfortable every Sunday going into a congregation and partaking of the sacrament. So because of our own beliefs, we all become a little bit closed-minded to other options or others' actions. But I also don't think that my beliefs make me have to make me closed-minded to say your beliefs, or your beliefs don't have to make you closed-minded to my beliefs. There's something discourse by Joseph Smith, who's the founder of my religion, and he talks about how we're always looking for truth wherever it may be. So whether in science or technology, I know you talked a lot about science and technology. Religion isn't anti-science or anti-technology. I think there are a lot of truths that we can find together. I think there are things that science can help religion to find, and I think there are things that religion helps science to find. I don't see why there has to be an antagonism, and I think that's where the problem comes in. The problem comes in when it feels like you're on your side and I'm on my side, when in fact we really need both. And even though supposedly, you know, like you talked about how the Constitution is was said by the founding fathers that it wasn't founded on Christian religion. Religion, if we look at the definition of it, as Samantha said, you can't say that it's not founded on religion, because it was absolutely founded on religion. Our country was founded on religion. So and especially because the Constitution is meant to represent the people of the United States, and a majority of the people in the United States are religious. So to say that in public policy we need to completely take out religion is in fact not representing a good majority of the United States.
That was really good.
So
should I ask you guys something?
Oh, yeah.
Keep going.
I was just going to say, like, one of
No, I don't. Sorry. I was going to say I don't really have any questions at the moment, so you can keep going.
One of the questions that we need to debate about a little bit, and then we need to have in our summary is, are religious folks the only one who with morals and values? And can morality exist without religion? Why or why not? And I think, from what I understood, what you were saying earlier, Katie, is that you have to be careful how you define morals, because morals doesn't only come from religion. There are good people with good morals who are not religious. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
And I think I agree too. I think that I agree that there are some people who don't have religion but still are good people. I do, however, also see some benefits of religion and keeping that in. As I was doing a little bit of research there on some studies that have been done, I actually found quite a bit of evidence for me, at least, that I saw that led to why religion is so important. I looked at some studies of how religion has affected the individual level and as well as the society at large. And those who are religious have lower psychological distresses, higher well-beings, and then also normally live longer. Um, Religion is also associated with voluntary associations, so a lot of the people who are religious are also um, integrated very well with the community and they volunteer a lot, and that it is also associated with economic growth of not only just the individual but as the society at general. The interesting thing was that religion is most beneficial when it is integrated, internalized, and intrinsically motivated, as well as being based on a secure relationship with God. That all changes, though, interestingly enough, when a religion is not something that the individual wants, but is imposed upon the individual. And I think that goes back to the Founding Fathers' wisdom when they made it the first right to have religion and to have that freedom to believe and to exercise your beliefs and to worship in the way that you see fit. And so like that seems to be like a very big founding part of the more religion, and that's why a lot of the countries, like I said, with Ukraine and Mongolia and things, who have taken out that religious freedom, have actually started implementing that back in because they realized that while there are good people with good morals, they also need to have that religious freedom for those who desire it, because otherwise it really limits their people and the morality of the society as a whole plummets, and the health issues increase and the economic growth decreases. So I guess like my question would be, if we were to take out religion entirely, or to just focus on science and technology, how would we replace religion to increase our standards as a country so that we could not fall as the other countries have?
Wait, how could we replace religion? What did you say after that?
How can we replace religion, or what would you propose that we replace with religion if we take religion out, so that we, as a country, don't become like the other countries who have done the same thing and their moral foundation has crumbled? So what can we do to kind of replace the glue of religion?
I think we could probably just teach good principles and morals, maybe in our school systems, then people would have, and also have parents help their children understand that they need to be good people, and I think there's a lot of ways we could make sure that people understand the importance of principles and religions, and if we're united on those, then I definitely think it could improve and we could overcome the problems that these other countries faced and as they began to crumble. Um, what else?
Well, I've got a follow-up question. You said like teach principles of good moral standards at schools, and also help teach the parents teach their children. How do we do that if we're not imposing a religion upon them? Because that's where we start saying, okay, I believe that this is moral truth, that you shouldn't lie. and so we're going to teach that throughout the schools. But that in and of itself, going back to the definition of religion, is a personal belief. And the humanistic view is that there is no absolute truth. And so I guess like what I'm saying is how do we teach our civilization these moral objectiveness when everybody has a different opinion?
Well,
And just so you know, I don't have an answer either. So like, it was just a question that I no pressure.
yeah, I don't know. I can't say I'm like really good at this side. So I'm not passionate about this side, so I don't know. I don't know any good answers for that question.
I have a bit of a comment, like as a humanist, like if I were on the humanist side, I do that. I know it's kind of bad, but just to help with maybe our debate a little bit, I just thought of this. But I guess in looking at our school systems, I feel like as a humanist, from a humanist perspective, the goal is not the goal is just very different. The goal is to be a lot like what Katie was saying about how important it is to continue to innovate and to become modernized rather than just traditional. And so with modern belief, with the modern belief system, it's not so much about like do not lie, because you know what, there are going to be situations where maybe lying is the best option. I know that in a book I read by Corrie ten Boom, she ended up hiding Jews during Nazism in Germany, and she had to lie to the Gestapo when they came and questioned her if she had Jews, and she had to say no. I mean, in that situation, she's lying. So are we doing a disservice to our students by teaching them absolute principles about lying or absolute principles about what is good or bad, when in every situation you're going to have to choose what is the better option, what is the better value system here? So I feel like religion can actually limit you in a way, because with that absolutism, you're limiting that student's capacity to choose, and to choose specific to that situation.
Well said.
Very well said.
Katie, do you have any questions?
Well, partly it kind of went along with what Hannah said about being more modern. Do you think that religion, I guess Hannah kind of talked about it a little bit just fairly, but do you think religion is somewhat outdated? Do you think it needs to be modified or updated in a way so that it's more what's the word? I guess goes along more with what our society is dealing with? Do you ever feel like it's too traditional?
I understand what you're saying. Oh, sorry, did you want to answer that?
No, you got it. You got it.
Sorry. I think with a lot of the stigmatism about religion is that it's based on traditional values, which are true, but that doesn't necessarily mean that traditional values can't be applied in a modern way. and it doesn't mean that traditional values necessarily stop modernization. I know that, I mean, I just think about the printing press and how I just feel like technology helps religion in a lot of ways. So why would we want to hinder technology? We wouldn't. In fact, we're trying to utilize it and we're trying to further technology. Um, so I feel like we can really combine forces. Like I feel like my religious beliefs actually help me to want to be more modernized in my ideas of technology. And science for me, the more I learn about science, the more I'm like, oh, I wonder how that applies religiously. I wonder how that applies to my religious beliefs. I don't think that my traditional values stops um, modern ideas. However, I do think that there are certain ideas that, to me, limit my capacity for agency. And so I know from my religious beliefs, I will not choose to partake of it. So if modernization is partying and drinking and doing drugs, that is something that I would not be party to.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, if that's what you call, I guess, if that's how you define modernization, then yes, my traditional beliefs would be limiting me. But if modernization is in fact technology and science, then I feel like it actually, my religious beliefs further that.
And I think going along with that, um, I don't, I wouldn't consider myself limited in my choice of religion because religion is a choice. You can find a religion to fit wherever you're at, or whatever your beliefs are at. And so I think like with it being too traditional, there definitely are some religions like the Amish, for example, who are very, very, very traditional, and they don't incorporate that technology and things. But nobody's forcing them to be Amish. I think of other religions that have really rolled with this moral change with this gender or same gender marriage, where they welcome LGBT people to come in and to even be a part of the clergy. And so there is some religions that are changing a lot with the moral change of society's views, and then there are some that stay kind of like in the medium, and that's where I kind of see my religion at, where there are some things that we don't do that are traditional, like we abstain from alcohol and premarital sex and things like that. But we also use technology, and we also work with science and think that believe that there's a connection between what, as Hannah was saying earlier, about finding truth from all sorts of different things. So I don't think, long story short, I don't think it's limiting in any way as far as being too traditional, because having that freedom in a society where we can choose our religion, we can choose a religion that fits our own things. So, like Hannah was saying, with like feeling uncomfortable at a bar, or being at a bar, or drinking alcohol, or partying, I would fit in that same category. But it's not because my religion tells me that, but it's because that's what my heart says, and my heart has chosen the religion I'm going for. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. You guys are good at answering these questions. um, hmm.
I think, how long have we been going for? Like, I've been keeping individual track, but there was like two more questions, or like one more question, as we were talking about this, just real fast before we have our wrap up. Um, it was talking about, do you think that the authors that your article is taking the moral high ground, or making a moral statement, why or why not? And so that's like one of the questions.
Do I think my article is taking like the moral high ground? Is that the question?
Yeah, why or why not?
Why or why not? Oh, okay. No, I don't. I don't think my article is morally sound or right. It lacks a lot of openness to other beliefs, and it's more about individualism and relying on humans and what they can do, and I think there's a lot that can be done without just relying on humans and technology. I think uh, God and religion does play a big role in society. So I think morally it has some good points, but it's definitely not like the best, I guess. So, because it dumbs down religion and traditional values and what's worked in the past as far as religion goes. It totally discredits that. So I don't think it's very good at morally. So.
What have you done?
My husband is a seminary teacher, and so like we're always like talking about church and stuff, and he's taking the same class and he's on the same side as me, and so he's like, I don't know if I can do this. But anyways. So we'll see.
Samantha, did you ask a question? Do you want me to answer the question?
Yeah, would that be okay? Did you want me to repeat it?
Do I believe that my author of my article is taking the moral high ground? Okay. Yes, I think he is. And I feel like even the way that he writes the article, even though he doesn't write as if he's closed-minded to the other side. In fact, he's very open to what the other side believes. I believe that he thinks that he's also taking the moral high ground. So in that way, I can understand how someone from the opposite point of view might see that as closed-minded, because he really speaks with authority and he speaks like he knows absolute truth, which from my religious perspective is true, and I know that he does. But from the other perspective of a more secular nature, I can understand how that might be off-putting to them, because he really does take the moral high ground in his argument.
And I agree with what you were saying, Hannah, that when Elder Oaks was talking, he was talking with a very firm kind of manner, but at the same time, he was still being tolerant of other people's beliefs. He wasn't accepting other people's beliefs, but he was being tolerant of them, and was encouraging that we would be tolerant as well. He mentioned how there are a couple of things that we need to do that included speaking with love and vocally insisting on constitutional rights, expecting the freedom for retaliation, insisting the freedom to preach truth of our faith, frame arguments in respectful ways to those who do not share our beliefs, and to never support the idea that someone needs to be of a particular religion in order to qualify for any political office. So that word "never" and like other words he was using was very firm. So he was very firm, and so I don't think he was. I think you're right. He was taking the moral high ground there, but he was also encouraging respect within debates, and also encouraging that other beliefs are taken into account, and that there are some things that we really need to be like he was a firmly assertive but tolerant of opposing views. So he wasn't like attacking people and calling them names or anything like that, but he was merely stating what our opposition was doing and what the danger of it was. Yes, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And just to add something else about my article, I felt like the author was pretty firm in what he believed and stuff, and he said things, let's see, what did he say? He said, although we believe in cultural diversity and encourage racial and ethnic pride, we reject separations which promote alienation and set people and groups against each other. And he said that, and then he would say things like religion isn't good and it hinders people and stuff. So like it almost like he contradicted himself in a way, because he would like, yeah, yay for diversity and culture, but then religion in some ways can be a culture too. So I feel like that was a pretty big weakness. But anyways.
Well, awesome. I think we did very well at like covering all the different points that we thought were like strengths and weaknesses. So I think we're ready for our summary. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to add first before we did that? All right, Hannah or Hannah, did you want to go ahead and give our summary? Sorry.
Okay, so in summary, our group had a lot of discussion about the differences between the humanist perspective and the religionist perspective. Katie brought up a lot of good points about how the Constitution, there are documents that say that it was not based on Christian religion by our forefathers, and how you can have morals without religious tradition behind you. She also brought up the fact that with a lot of religious belief systems comes a lot of belief sort of in more traditional value systems rather than being able to be more modernized. And in some religious perspectives, there are a lot of tendencies toward, I guess, not willing to be modernized with technology or with science. And in her perspective, looking at technology and science, they're essential to our societies and success of our societies. And so the traditional value of religion can hinder that. And we also talked about how difficult it would be to that we've seen. I know Samantha talked about this, is the idea that in other countries of the world where religion is not able to be practiced, there is a decrease in morals, and how it's not necessarily that religion is the only place where morals can exist. It's the fact that without religion, morals do tend to become less and less in a society. And we discussed how one could implement morals in a system without the aid of religion, and how difficult that process would be. We also addressed the issue of closed-mindedness, and how on both sides closed-mindedness can be something that can hinder, and how we both sides kind of have that idea of being closed-minded, but at the same time, I know Samantha and I felt like Elder Oaks did a good job of stating his opinion with authority while also allowing people to have their beliefs. So our arguments were really about how we really need both sides. I really feel like that's kind of what that's something that I've really gotten out of the discussion, and what we kind of figured out was that both of us have a right in our country to voice our opinions, and how both sides are really needed to see the importance of both. And in establishing more freedom or more authority from one side over another, that's when issues really begin to happen. And I don't know if anyone has anything else to add. I don't know. I don't know how well I did that.
I think you did great. So thank you, Hannah, for doing that. That was a really good overview of our entire discussion in like 4 minutes. Well done.
Yeah, that was great.
So I